The alarm clock screamed at 5:30 a.m., just like it had every morning for the past 3 years. David Chen rolled out of bed, his joints creaking like old wooden floors. At 28, he already felt the wear and tear of construction work in his bones, but he wouldn't trade it for anything. There was something deeply satisfying about building things with his own two hands, about seeing empty lots transform into homes where families would make memories. He pulled on his thick work boots, the leather worn smooth from countless job sites. The weather app on his cracked phone screen showed 18 degrees with a wind chill that made it feel like single digits. David grabbed his heavy construction jacket from the hook by the door, the same navy blue Carhartt that had gotten him through 5 brutal winters. The jacket was more than just clothing to him. It was armor against the elements, a uniform that marked him as someone who worked with purpose. The walk to the bus stop took 12 minutes, and with each step, his breath formed small clouds in the frigid air. Downtown looked different in the early morning hours. The usual hustle and bustle was replaced by an almost eerie quiet, broken only by the distant hum of delivery trucks and the occasional early commuter, hurrying past with their coffee cups steaming like tiny campfires. David had been taking this same route for 3 years now, ever since he started working with Helping Hands Construction, a small nonprofit company that renovated homes for families who couldn't afford major repairs. The pay wasn't spectacular, but the work meant something. Last month, they'd helped fix the roof for an elderly woman whose ceiling had been leaking for 2 years. The smile on her face when they finished was worth more than any bonus check. As he rounded the corner toward his usual bus stop, David noticed he wasn't alone. A woman sat on the metal bench, hunched forward with her arms wrapped tightly around herself. Even from a distance, he could see she was shivering. She looked completely out of place at this working-class bus stop, dressed in what appeared to be expensive business clothes that were absolutely useless against the morning freeze. Her dark hair was perfectly styled, and she wore a thin blazer that probably cost more than David made in a week. But fancy clothes couldn't fight off hypothermia, and this woman was clearly losing the battle against the cold. She kept checking her phone with fingers that were probably too numb to work properly, occasionally blowing on her hands to try to warm them up. David's mother had raised him right. "You help people when they need it," she used to say. "Doesn't matter who they are or where they come from. We're all human beings trying to get through this world." Those words had stuck with him through every job site, every tough day, every moment when he had to choose between looking out for himself or lending a hand. He approached the bench slowly, not wanting to startle her. The woman looked up as he got closer, and he could see her lips had a slight blue tint that made his heart skip with concern. Her eyes were tired but alert, the kind of exhaustion that comes from stress rather than sleepiness. "Excuse me," David said, his voice gentle but clear. "I don't mean to bother you, but you look really cold. Are you okay?" The woman tried to smile, but her teeth were chattering too much to make it convincing. "I'm fine, thank you. Just waiting for a ride." Her voice had a professional tone, the kind of crisp delivery that suggested she was used to being in control of situations. But right now, Mother Nature was in charge, and she was losing this particular negotiation. David didn't hesitate. He started unzipping his construction jacket, the heavy zipper making a distinctive sound in the quiet morning air. "Here, please take this. You're freezing." "Oh no, I couldn't," the woman protested, holding up her hands. "You'll be cold without it." "Ma'am, with all due respect, I've been working construction in this weather for years. This cold doesn't bother me like it's bothering you right now." He held out the jacket, its worn fabric telling the story of countless early mornings and late evenings. "I run hot anyway. Always have, even as a kid. My mom used to joke that I was her personal space heater." The woman stared at the jacket, then at David's face. He had the kind of honest eyes that you just couldn't fake, the type of genuine expression that comes from a life lived helping others. There was no hidden agenda in his offer, no expectation of anything in return. Just pure human kindness on a freezing February morning. "I really can't take your jacket," she said again, but her resolve was weakening as another gust of wind cut through her thin blazer like it wasn't even there. "Look," David said, settling onto the other end of the bench but keeping a respectful distance. "I'm going to be working inside a heated building all day. You look like you've got somewhere important to be, and you can't get there if you turn into a popsicle first." He grinned, the kind of warm smile that could melt ice. "Plus, my grandmother would come back from the grave to smack me if she knew I let a lady freeze while I had a perfectly good jacket to share." Despite herself, the woman laughed. It was a real laugh, not the polite chuckle she probably used in business meetings. Your grandmother sounds like she was a wise woman. The wisest, David agreed, still holding out the jacket. So what do you say? Can you help me avoid getting haunted by my grandmother's ghost? The woman looked at the jacket again, then at David's expectant face. The morning wind chose that moment to pick up, sending another brutal chill through her thin clothes. Her professional resolve finally cracked. Okay, she said quietly, but just until I can get somewhere warm. David's face lit up as he gently placed the jacket around her shoulders. The difference was immediate and dramatic. The jacket was huge on her, hanging down past her hands and enveloping her like a warm hug. It smelled like honest work, a mixture of sawdust, fresh wood, and that indefinable scent of someone who builds things for a living. Better? David asked, zipping the jacket up to her chin like he might do for a child. Much better, she admitted, and for the first time since he'd approached, she looked genuinely comfortable. Thank you. I'm Anna, by the way. David, he replied, extending a work-roughened hand that she shook without hesitation. Nice to meet you, Anna, though I wish it was under warmer circumstances. As they sat together on the bench, Anna pulled the jacket tighter around herself. In the span of 5 minutes, a complete stranger had shown her more genuine kindness than she'd experienced in months of business meetings and corporate dinners. There was something refreshing about David's straightforward goodness, something that reminded her of values she'd almost forgotten in her climb up the corporate ladder. The morning was still brutally cold, but somehow sitting next to this construction worker who'd given up his jacket without a second thought, Anna felt warmer than she had in a very long time. Now that Anna was wrapped in David's warm jacket, the terrible shivering had stopped and she could actually think clearly again. The jacket was enormous on her small frame, making her look like a child wearing her father's clothes, but she didn't care. For the first time in an hour, her fingers weren't numb and she could feel her toes again. So what brings you to this lovely bus stop at such an ungodly hour? David asked with a chuckle, settling back on the bench. He seemed completely unbothered by the cold, wearing just a flannel shirt and work pants. His breath still made small clouds in the air, but he acted like they were sitting on a warm summer day. Anna hesitated for a moment. She wasn't used to casual conversations with strangers, especially not with construction workers at bus stops. Her world was filled with carefully planned meetings, strategic conversations, and people who always wanted something from her. But David's question seemed genuinely curious with no hidden agenda behind it. My car broke down about 6 blocks from here, she explained, tucking her hands deeper into the jacket's warm pockets. I was heading back from an early meeting and the engine just died. The tow truck won't be here for another hour, and I was getting desperate for somewhere warm to wait. That's rough, David said sympathetically. Cars always seem to break down at the worst possible times, don't they? Like they know exactly when you need them most. He paused, then added, What kind of meeting has you out this early? Must be pretty important. Anna found herself smiling at his easy way of talking. There was something refreshing about his straightforward curiosity. Business meeting with some investors. They wanted to meet before the market opened. She didn't elaborate further, not wanting to get into the complicated details of her corporate life. David nodded like that made perfect sense, even though Anna suspected he probably didn't deal with investors or market openings in his daily life. Sounds stressful. I bet you're glad that's over with. You could say that, Anna agreed. What about you? You're up pretty early yourself. David's face lit up and Anna could see this was a topic he genuinely enjoyed talking about. I work construction, but not the typical kind. I'm with this non-profit called Helping Hands Construction. We fix up homes for families who can't afford major repairs. His voice carried real pride as he explained. Most of our clients are elderly folks or single parents who are just trying to keep their families safe and warm. That sounds amazing, Anna said, and she meant it. There was something beautiful about the passion in David's voice when he talked about his work. What kind of repairs do you usually do? Oh, everything really, David said, his hands moving as he talked, painting pictures in the cold air. Last week we replaced a whole roof for this grandmother, who'd been putting buckets around her living room every time it rained. The week before that, we fixed a heating system for a single mom with 3 kids. Can you imagine trying to keep 3 little ones warm when your heater doesn't work? Anna shook her head, genuinely moved by the image. She lived in a world where broken heaters meant calling a service company, and having it fixed within hours. The idea of children going without heat was heartbreaking. The thing is, David continued, his voice growing more animated, most of these people have been putting off repairs for years because they can't afford them. They'll patch things with duct tape and prayers, hoping everything holds together for one more winter. By the time we get to them, what should have been a simple fix has turned into a major problem. How do people find out about your organization? Anna asked. She found herself leaning forward, genuinely interested in what he was saying. Usually word of mouth, David explained. We work with local churches, schools, community centers. Sometimes social workers refer families to us. We always have more requests than we can handle, which is both wonderful and heartbreaking, you know? Anna did know, though probably not in the way David meant. In her business world, having more demand than supply was usually a good problem to have. But when you were talking about families in need, she could see how it would weigh on someone with David's obvious caring nature. It must be incredibly rewarding work, she said thoughtfully, seeing the difference you make in people's lives. David's eyes actually got a little misty, though Anna couldn't tell if it was from emotion or the cold wind. You should see their faces when we finish a job. Last month we fixed this leaky ceiling for an old woman named Mrs. Patterson. She'd been sleeping on her couch for 6 months because her bedroom was uninhabitable. When we finished, she cried and hugged every single one of us. She kept saying she could finally sleep in her own bed again. That's beautiful, Anna said softly. She tried to remember the last time her work had directly improved someone's life in such a tangible way. Most of her day was spent in meetings about profit margins and market strategies. Important work certainly, but nothing that would make an elderly woman cry tears of gratitude. The pay isn't great, David admitted with a self-conscious laugh. I mean, nonprofits aren't exactly known for making people rich. But honestly, I can't imagine doing anything else. There's something about using your skills to help people who really need it, you know? It makes getting up at 5:30 in the morning worth it. Anna pulled the jacket tighter around herself, thinking about David's words. Here was someone who had found genuine purpose in his work, who jumped out of bed each morning excited to make a difference. She couldn't remember the last time she'd felt that kind of enthusiasm about her job. Do you have enough funding to help everyone who needs it? She asked. David shook his head ruefully. Not even close. We're always scrambling for materials and supplies. We get some grants and local businesses sometimes donate, but there's always more need than resources. We probably turn away 3 families for everyone we can help. That must be frustrating, Anna said. It is, David agreed. But we figure helping one family is better than helping none, right? And sometimes the families we help spread the word and we get more donations or volunteers. It's like throwing a stone in a pond, the ripples keep spreading. Anna was quiet for a moment, processing everything David had shared. His genuine passion for helping others was unlike anything she encountered in her daily life. Most of the people she worked with were driven by profit and success, which wasn't necessarily bad. But it was refreshing to meet someone motivated purely by the desire to make life better for others. In the distance, she could hear the rumble of an approaching bus. David heard it too and glanced down the street. That's probably my ride, he said, standing up and brushing off his pants. Are you sure you'll be okay here until your tow truck comes? Anna stood up too, suddenly realizing she didn't want this conversation to end. I'll be fine, thanks to you. She started to take off the jacket. Here, you'll need this. Keep it, David said firmly, holding up his hands. Seriously, I've got another one at work. Just get yourself somewhere warm. He reached into his wallet and pulled out a simple business card. Nothing fancy, just white cardstock with basic information. Call me when you want to return it. Or if you ever want to hear more about our work, we can always use more people who understand what we're trying to do. The bus was getting closer, its headlights cutting through the early morning darkness. Anna took the card, reading David Chen Helping Hands Construction in simple black text. Thank you, she said, meaning it more than he probably realized. For everything. David grinned that warm, genuine smile that seemed to light up the whole bus stop. Just pay it forward someday. As the bus pulled up with a hiss of brakes, Anna watched this remarkable man climb aboard, giving her a final wave through the window as it pulled away. She stood there in his oversized jacket, holding his business card, and realized her morning had taken a completely unexpected turn. For the first time in years, she'd met someone who had reminded her what real kindness looked like. 3 days had passed since that cold morning at the bus stop, and Anna couldn't stop thinking about her encounter with David. She'd worn his jacket to work that first day, ignoring the strange looks from her colleagues as she walked through the marble lobby of her corporate headquarters. Wearing an oversized construction jacket over her business suit, the jacket had become like a security blanket, reminding her of genuine human kindness in a world that often felt cold and calculating. But now, sitting in her corner office on the 42nd floor, Anna knew it was time to return the jacket. She'd been holding David's simple business card for 3 days, turning it over in her hands during quiet moments between meetings. The card was so different from the elaborate business cards she usually received, with their embossed letters, fancy logos, and multiple phone numbers. David's card was straightforward and honest, just like the man himself. Anna picked up her personal phone, not the company line, and dialed the number. Her heart was beating faster than normal, though she couldn't quite explain why. Maybe it was because she was nervous about seeing him again, or maybe it was because she knew she'd have to tell him the truth about who she really was. The phone rang twice before David's familiar voice answered. "Hello, this is David." "Hi, David, this is Anna. We met at the bus stop a few days ago." "You gave me your jacket." "Anna!" "Of course I remember. How are you doing? Did you get your car situation sorted out?" His voice was warm and genuinely pleased to hear from her, which made Anna smile despite her nervousness. "Yes, thank you. The car's fixed now. Listen, I was wondering if we could meet somewhere so I can return your jacket. I've been wearing it around and I'm sure you need it back." "Oh, you really don't need to rush," David said. "I told you I had another one. But if you want to meet up, that would be nice. How about that little diner near the bus stop? Murphy's, I think it's called. They make decent coffee and it's usually pretty quiet." "That sounds perfect," Anna agreed. "When works for you?" "I get off work around 4:30 today. Would 5 o'clock work?" Anna glanced at her calendar, mentally rearranging a conference call that suddenly seemed far less important than returning a jacket to a kind stranger. 5 o'clock is perfect. I'll see you there." After hanging up, Anna sat back in her leather executive chair and looked out at the city skyline. From this height, the people on the streets looked like tiny ants, and sometimes she felt just as disconnected from them. David had reminded her what it felt like to have a genuine human conversation, and she found herself looking forward to seeing him again more than she cared to admit. At exactly 5 o'clock, Anna walked into Murphy's diner carrying David's jacket carefully folded over her arm. The place was exactly what she'd expected: red vinyl booths, checkered floors, and the smell of coffee and home-cooked food. It was the kind of place she never would have entered in her normal life, but somehow it felt comfortable and welcoming. David was already there, sitting in a corner booth and waving when he saw her. He stood up as she approached, that same genuine smile lighting up his face. Today he was wearing a clean flannel shirt and jeans, his hair still slightly damp from what was probably a quick shower after work. "Anna, you look great," he said, gesturing for her to sit across from him. "Though I have to say that jacket looked pretty good on you too." Anna laughed, settling into the booth and placing the folded jacket between them. "It definitely kept me warm. I can't thank you enough for lending it to me. You probably saved me from frostbite." "Glad I could help," David said, signaling the waitress for coffee. "So tell me, how's your week been? Any more early morning investor meetings?" Anna hesitated for a moment. This was it, the moment where she'd have to decide how much of the truth to tell him. She'd been thinking about this conversation for 3 days, and she still wasn't sure how to approach it. "Actually, that's something I need to talk to you about," she said, accepting a steaming cup of coffee from the waitress. "I wasn't entirely honest with you the other morning." David's eyebrows went up slightly, but his expression remained open and curious rather than suspicious. "Oh, what do you mean?" Anna took a deep breath. "I told you I was coming back from a meeting with investors, which was true. But I didn't tell you that I was the one they were meeting with. Not the other way around." "I'm not sure I follow," David said, stirring sugar into his coffee. "David, my full name is Anna Chen. I'm the CEO of Chen Development Group." The spoon in David's hand stopped moving. He stared at her for a long moment, his expression shifting from confusion to recognition to something that might have been shock. "Chen Development Group," he repeated slowly. "The construction company?" "Among other things, yes," Anna said quietly. "We're one of the largest development companies in the state. We do commercial buildings, residential developments, infrastructure projects." David set his spoon down carefully, as if he was afraid he might drop it. "You're serious. Completely serious." But you were at a bus stop at 6 in the morning, freezing in business clothes, David said, still trying to process this information. Anna couldn't help but smile at his confusion. My driver had called in sick that morning, and I'd taken my personal car to the meeting instead of the company car. When it broke down, I didn't want to call my assistant or make a big fuss. I just wanted to get somewhere warm and figure it out myself. You're Anna Chen, David said again, as if saying it would make it more real. I've seen your company's signs on job sites all over the city. You probably have, Anna agreed. We're involved in a lot of projects around here. David ran his hand through his hair, a gesture Anna was beginning to recognize as something he did when he was thinking hard. This is crazy. Do you know what this means? What do you mean? I work for a subcontractor that sometimes does small jobs for your company. Jackson Brothers Contracting. They've done electrical work on maybe 3 or 4 Chen development projects over the past couple years. Anna's eyes widened. Really? That's incredible. More than incredible, David said, shaking his head in amazement. It's like something out of a movie. I give my jacket to a stranger at a bus stop, and it turns out she's the CEO of one of the biggest construction companies in the state. They sat in silence for a moment, both trying to process the coincidence. Anna watched David's face, wondering what he was thinking. Was he angry that she hadn't told him the truth from the beginning? Did he think she'd been playing some kind of game with him? Why didn't you tell me? David asked finally, his voice gentle rather than accusatory. Anna considered her answer carefully. Honestly? Because it felt nice to just be a person for once instead of a CEO. When you offered me your jacket, you didn't do it because you thought it might benefit you somehow. You did it because you saw another human being who needed help. That's rare in my world. What do you mean? Most of the people I interact with want something from me, Anna explained. A contract, a job, an investment, a favor. They're nice to me because of my position, not because of who I am as a person. But you helped me without knowing anything about me except that I was cold. David nodded slowly, understanding dawning in his eyes. That must be lonely. It can be, Anna admitted, surprised by her own honesty. But sitting here with you, talking like this, it reminds me that there are still good people in the world who do things for the right reasons. Like what you told me about helping hands, David said. That's what drew me to that work in the first place. It's not about who people are or what they can do for you. It's just about helping because help is needed. Anna felt something click into place in her mind, an idea that had been forming since their conversation at the bus stop. David, can I ask you something? Sure. Are you happy with your current job? I mean, do you feel like you're making the impact you want to make? David considered the question seriously. I love the work we do and the people I work with are great. But like I told you, we're always limited by funding and resources. There are so many families we have to turn away because we just don't have the capacity to help everyone. Anna leaned forward slightly. What if I told you there might be a way to help more people? A lot more people? What do you mean? I mean, what if someone with more resources wanted to support the kind of work you're doing? What if there was a way to scale up helping hands or create something even bigger? David's eyes lit up with interest, but also with caution. That would be amazing, but these things are complicated. We've tried to expand before, but it's not just about money. It's about finding the right people who care about the work for the right reasons. Anna smiled, understanding exactly what he meant. You're absolutely right. It would have to be done carefully with the right people. People who understand that it's not about profit margins or publicity. It's about genuinely helping families who need it. As they continued talking, Anna felt more energized than she had in months. Here was someone who shared her growing desire to use business success for real social impact. And the best part was she knew David's motivations were pure because he'd shown her kindness when he had no idea who she was. The diner around them began to fill with the dinner crowd, but neither Anna nor David seemed to notice. They were too busy discovering that sometimes the most important business partnerships begin with something as simple as offering a jacket to a stranger on a cold morning. The coffee in their cups had grown cold as Anna and David continued talking, but neither of them seemed to notice. The dinner crowd at Murphy's Diner buzzed around them, but they were completely absorbed in their conversation. Anna had been watching David's face carefully as she explained more about her company, and she could see the wheels turning in his mind. You know, Anna said, leaning back in the vinyl booth, I've been thinking about our conversation at the bus stop ever since it happened. You talked about helping families, about making a real difference in people's lives. That's exactly the kind of thinking my company needs more of. David looked puzzled. What do you mean? Shen Development Group is already successful. You build major projects all over the state. Success in business and success in life aren't always the same thing, Anna replied thoughtfully. Yes, we're profitable, and yes, we build impressive buildings. But I've been feeling like something's missing. Like we could be doing more than just making money. She paused, gathering her thoughts. The idea that had been forming in her mind was becoming clearer by the minute. David, what would you say if I told you I've been thinking about starting a new division at Chen Development Group? Something focused specifically on community development and affordable housing? David's eyebrows shot up. That would be incredible. There's such a huge need for that kind of work. Exactly, Anna said, her voice gaining excitement. I've been looking at the numbers, and there are thousands of families in our area who need safe, affordable housing. But most construction companies won't touch those projects because the profit margins are smaller. That's true, David agreed. The big companies usually go for the commercial projects or luxury developments. There's more money in building office towers than in fixing up homes for working families. Anna nodded enthusiastically. But what if profit wasn't the only measure of success? What if a company could make a reasonable return while also making a real difference in the community? David's eyes were beginning to light up with the same excitement Anna was feeling. It's possible, but it would take the right approach. You'd need people who understand both the business side and the human side. That's exactly what I was thinking, Anna said, taking a deep breath. Which brings me to something I want to ask you. David waited, sensing that something important was coming. I want to offer you a job. David, I want you to head up this new community development division. The words hung in the air between them. David stared at Anna for a long moment, his mouth slightly open in surprise. You want to offer me a what? He finally managed. A job, Anna repeated, smiling at his reaction. Project manager for community development. You'd oversee affordable housing projects, community centers, renovation programs for low-income families. Basically everything you're already passionate about, but on a much larger scale. David shook his head slowly, still processing what he'd just heard. Anna, I appreciate the thought, but I'm just a construction worker. I don't have experience managing big corporate projects. You have something more valuable than corporate experience, Anna said firmly. You have genuine care for the people this work would serve. You understand what families need because you've been working with them directly. You know the difference between what looks good on paper and what actually helps people. But I don't know anything about running a division of a major company, David protested. I wouldn't know where to start. Anna leaned forward, her voice gentle but confident. David, 3 days ago you saw a stranger who was cold, and without thinking twice you gave her your jacket. You didn't hesitate. You didn't calculate what you might get in return, you just helped because help was needed. That's exactly the kind of leadership this division would need. David was quiet for a moment, staring down at his coffee cup. Anna could see he was thinking hard, weighing what she'd said. What would this job actually involve? He asked finally. You'd work with architects and city planners to design affordable housing projects, Anna explained. You'd coordinate with local nonprofits to identify families who need help. You'd oversee construction teams working on community projects. And most importantly, you'd make sure that everything we build actually serves the people it's supposed to help. That sounds amazing, David said slowly. But I have to ask, why me? You could hire someone with years of corporate experience, someone with advanced degrees and management training. Anna smiled. Because those people would focus on spreadsheets and profit projections. You focus on Mrs. Patterson sleeping on her couch because her bedroom ceiling leaks. That's the perspective this division needs. David was quiet again, and Anna could see the internal struggle playing out on his face. Part of him was clearly excited by the possibility, but another part seemed overwhelmed by the scope of what she was offering. Can I ask about the practical details? David said finally. I mean, I have bills to pay, and non-profit work doesn't exactly come with a huge salary. The position would come with a significant salary increase, Anna assured him. We're talking about a corporate management position, not non-profit wages. You'd have a benefits package, vacation time, and a budget to actually accomplish the work you want to do. David's eyes widened. How significant of an increase are we talking about? Anna named a figure that made David's coffee cup freeze halfway to his mouth. That's more than double what I make now, he said quietly. It's appropriate for the level of responsibility you'd have, Anna replied. You'd be managing millions of dollars in construction projects and overseeing teams of workers. But more than that, you'd be changing lives on a scale that Helping Hands could never reach on its own. David set his coffee cup down with shaking hands. Anna, this is incredibly generous, but I need to think about it. This is a huge decision. Of course, Anna said immediately. I wouldn't expect you to decide on the spot. This is a major life change. She reached into her purse and pulled out a business card, but this one was different from the simple white card David had given her. This was her personal card, with her direct phone number and email. Take all the time you need, she said, sliding the card across the table. But before you decide, I want you to do something for me. What's that? I want you to visit some of our current projects. See what Chen Development Group is capable of when we put our minds to something. I'll arrange for you to tour a few sites, talk to some of our project managers, get a feel for how we operate. David picked up the card, running his thumb over the raised lettering. You really think I could do this? David, in 3 days you've shown me more genuine leadership than I've seen from some executives I've worked with for years, Anna said earnestly. You have a vision for how construction work can help people, and you have the practical experience to make it happen. What you don't have yet is the platform to do it on a large scale. That's what I'm offering you. But what if I mess it up? David asked, voicing the fear that was clearly weighing on him. What if I'm not cut out for corporate work? Then we figure it out together, Anna said simply. This isn't about throwing you into the deep end and hoping you swim. If you take this job, you'll have support, training, and resources. But most importantly, you'll have someone who believes in what you're trying to accomplish. David looked around the diner, taking in the simple surroundings that were so familiar to him. Anna could almost see him imagining a different kind of life, one where he could help not just one family at a time, but dozens or hundreds of families. How long do I have to decide? He asked. There's no deadline, Anna said. This isn't some corporate recruitment timeline where we need an answer by Friday. Take the time you need to make the right decision for you. David nodded slowly, tucking her business card into his wallet next to his own simple white cards. I have to ask, he said, looking back up at Anna. What made you think of this? I mean, creating a whole new division, offering me this job. Was it really just because of our conversation at the bus stop? Anna considered the question carefully. Do you know what I was thinking about during that investor meeting the morning we met? David shook his head. Quarterly profit reports and market share percentages? Anna said with a slight smile. Numbers on spreadsheets that would make our shareholders happy. But after talking with you, I realized I'd forgotten why I got into construction in the first place. Why did you get into it? Because I wanted to build things that mattered, Anna said. I wanted to create spaces where people could live and work and be happy. Somewhere along the way, I got so focused on building a successful company that I forgot about building a meaningful one. She looked directly into David's eyes. You reminded me that business can be about more than just making money. It can be about making a difference. And if I'm going to make that kind of difference, I need someone who understands what that really means. As they finally prepared to leave the diner, Anna felt more hopeful about the future than she had in years. Whether David took the job or not, their conversation had clarified something important for her. She wanted to use her company's success to create real change in her community. And if David did take the position, she had a feeling they could accomplish something truly special together. David spent the next 2 weeks in a state of constant thought. Anna's business card sat on his kitchen table, moved only when he cleaned around it or when he picked it up to stare at the phone number for the 100th time. His small apartment felt different somehow, like it was holding its breath waiting for him to make a decision that would change everything. He'd called Anna after 3 days to take her up on the offer to visit Chen Development Group's current projects. The tours had been eye-opening in ways he hadn't expected. The company's work was impressive, but what struck him most was the scale of what they could accomplish. Where Helping Hands might fix one roof, Chen Development could build an entire neighborhood of affordable homes. The first site Anna had arranged for him to visit was a mixed-income housing development on the south side of the city. The project manager, a woman named Rebecca who had 20 years of experience, walked him through the entire complex. When Ms. Chen told me about the community development division she's planning, I got excited for the first time in years, Rebecca had said as they stood looking at the new apartments. Don't get me wrong, I love my job, but there's something special about building homes that working families can actually afford. David had nodded, understanding exactly what she meant. The apartments weren't luxury units, but they were well-built, safe, and designed with families in mind. Playgrounds were visible from kitchen windows, so parents could watch their children while cooking dinner. The community center was centrally located, with programs for job training and after-school care. This is what we could do more of, Rebecca had continued, but it takes someone who really understands what families need, not just what looks good in architectural magazines. The second site visit had been even more powerful. Anna had taken him to see a community center that Chen Development had built in partnership with local organizations. Inside, David met families whose lives had been directly impacted by the building's programs. There was a computer lab where teenagers learned coding, a kitchen where cooking classes helped people eat healthier on tight budgets, and meeting rooms where support groups gathered. Before this place opened, "My kids had nowhere safe to go after school," one mother had told David. "Now my daughter does her homework in the tutoring program, and my son is learning guitar in the music room. This building gave my family hope." Standing in that community center, David had felt something click into place. This was what he'd been searching for without even knowing it. A way to help not just individual families, but entire communities. That evening, Anna had taken him to dinner at a quiet restaurant. Nothing fancy, just a place where they could talk without interruption. "What did you think?" she'd asked over plates of pasta that neither of them was really focusing on. "It's incredible," David had said honestly. "The scale of what you can accomplish, the number of families you can help at once. It's everything I've dreamed about but never thought was possible." "But," Anna had prompted, sensing his hesitation. "But I keep thinking about Mrs. Patterson," David had admitted. "The woman whose roof we fixed. When we finished that job, she hugged each of us and cried because she could sleep in her own bed again. That personal connection, that moment of real human impact. I'm worried I might lose that in a corporate environment." Anna had set down her fork and looked directly at him. "David, what if I told you that you could have both? What if this job would let you help 100 Mrs. Pattersons instead of just one?" That conversation had happened a week ago, and David still couldn't get it out of his mind. He'd talked to his parents, called his brother, even had a long conversation with his old supervisor at Helping Hands. Everyone had been supportive, but they'd all said the same thing. The decision had to come from his heart. Finally, on a Sunday morning, David picked up his phone and dialed Anna's number. "Hello, David?" Anna answered on the second ring as if she'd been expecting his call. "Hi, Anna. I've made my decision." There was a pause, and David could almost hear Anna holding her breath. "I want to take the job," he said simply. "Really?" Anna's voice carried a mix of joy and relief. "You're sure?" "I'm sure," David said, and as he spoke the words, he realized he truly was. "I want to help build something that makes a real difference, and I think we can do that together." "David, I can't tell you how happy this makes me," Anna said, and he could hear the genuine emotion in her voice. "When do you want to start?" "Give me 2 weeks to wrap things up at Helping Hands properly," David said. "I want to make sure they have time to find someone to take over my current projects." "Of course. Take all the time you need." 6 months later, David stood in the conference room of Chen Development Group, looking at architectural plans spread across the table. The Community Development Division had gone from an idea to a reality faster than either he or Anna had expected. They'd already broken ground on 3 affordable housing projects and had plans for 2 more community centers. "The City Council approved our proposal for the Riverside development," Anna announced, walking into the conference room with a smile that lit up her entire face. 60 units of affordable housing, plus a community garden and a job training center. David grinned back at her. "That's fantastic. The families from the Morrison Elementary waiting list will finally have somewhere to go." It had been an incredible 6 months. David had discovered that he had a natural talent for project management, and more importantly, he'd found ways to maintain the personal connections that mattered so much to him. Every Friday, he spent time on the construction sites, talking with workers and future residents, making sure that the human element never got lost in the business side of things. Anna had been right about having both. Just last week, David had been at the ribbon cutting for their first completed project, a renovated apartment building that now housed 12 families. When Mrs. Rodriguez, a single mother of 3, had shaken his hand and said, "Thank you for giving my children a safe place to call home," David had felt the same deep satisfaction he'd experienced fixing Mrs. Patterson's roof. The ripple effects had been beyond anything either of them had imagined. Other construction companies had started their own community development programs, inspired by Chen Development's success. Local nonprofits had reached out for partnerships. The mayor had asked them to consult on the city's affordable housing strategy. "You know what the best part is," Anna said, looking at the plans spread across the table. "Next month, we're going to announce our partnership with Helping Hands Construction." David looked up in surprise. "Really? Really? We're going to fund their expansion, help them hire more workers, and coordinate our efforts so we can help even more families. They'll handle the individual home repairs and small projects, and we'll focus on the larger developments. Together we can cover almost every type of housing need in the community." David felt a warm rush of satisfaction. The organization that had taught him everything about community service would now be able to help 10 times as many families, thanks to the partnership he'd helped create. "There's something else," Anna said, her voice taking on a more serious tone. "The board wants to make this division a permanent part of our company mission. Not just a side project, but a core part of what Chen Development Group stands for." "That's incredible," David said, though part of him wasn't surprised. The Community Development Division had become the most talked about part of Anna's business. Local newspapers had written articles about their work, and other companies had started asking how they could implement similar programs. As they worked late into the evening, planning their next project, David thought about how much his life had changed since that cold morning at the bus stop. He was making more money than he'd ever imagined, but more importantly, he was making a bigger impact than he'd ever dreamed possible. "Anna," he said as they finally packed up their plans for the night, "can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Do you ever think about what would have happened if your car hadn't broken down that morning?" Anna smiled, the same warm expression he'd seen that first day when she'd accepted his jacket. "I think about it all the time. But you know what I really think?" "What?" "I think kindness has a way of finding the right people at the right time. Maybe it wasn't an accident that we met. Maybe the universe knew we both needed to remember what really matters." David nodded, understanding exactly what she meant. As they walked out of the building together, he thought about all the families who would have safe, affordable homes because of their work together. Hundreds of children would grow up in better circumstances. Thousands of people would have access to job training and community programs, and it all started with a simple decision to offer his jacket to a stranger who was cold. Sometimes the smallest acts of kindness create the biggest changes in the world. And sometimes when you help someone else, you end up helping yourself in ways you never expected. David had given Anna his jacket on a cold morning, but she had given him something even more valuable: the chance to make his dreams of helping people come true on a scale he'd never imagined possible. The story of their partnership had become legendary in their city, inspiring other acts of kindness and community service. But for David and Anna, it would always be simple. Two people who met at exactly the right moment and decided to build something beautiful together.